You're really good at pretending to be a little girl.
Thank you. Quick question. Who's inside a cage right now?
Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, I've been to the cinema today and I've seen two movies at the cinema on the same day, and it's still daylight outside. So I had a great day, went down to the Sun at Yarraville. I haven't really described it too well on the channel. It's a cinema with 8 boutique screens inside it, showing all sorts of different movies. I decided I was going to go see 2 movies. Got there at 10 o'clock. Saw the first one, Civil War. And then when I got out of Civil War, I found out that another movie, Abigail, was starting in about 10 minutes. So I went and saw that one, both on different screens. And the screens were pretty damn good. I'll start with Civil War and then tell you about Abigail. Ever since I saw the trailer of Civil War, I wanted to see it. I like A24 films. I think they're a good production company and they're doing some interesting kind of low, medium budget movies. This one only cost $50 million and yet it's the most expensive movie that A24 have ever produced. The story we all know. It's about an American Civil War and a group of war correspondents, journalists and war photographers are traveling from New York City to Washington DC during the middle of this Civil War because the dictatorial president, played by Nick Offerman, his regime is about to fall and they want to be there at the time it happens. They want to be at Hitler's bunker, essentially. And there are some allusions made to World War II combat photographers and other things during the movie, including the legendary Lee Miller, who was one of the great war photographers of the Second World War, and she had a very interesting life. And the lead character of the movie, Lee Smith, played by Kirsten Dunst, is a direct reference to Lee Miller. The movie starts with a suicide bombing during a protest in Brooklyn, and that's a very full-on group of scenes. There are cops beating protesters. There's a whole bunch of international war correspondents around looking at this protest. And then the suicide bombing happens. Bang. The aftermath of the suicide bombing gets a relationship going between Lee and a young journalist called Jessie, played by Kaylee Spaney, who is just starting out in the business. She doesn't know too much about it. She uses old school photographic film rather than digital photography. And she kind of wangles her way into the trip where Lee, her driver, another journalist called Joel, played by Wagner Moira, and an older journalist, Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henson, are traveling by car from New York to Washington, D.C. and hoping to get there before the fall of the regime. Traveling between New York and Washington, D.C. is not a straightforward thing. So they've got to avoid large population centres for the most part because they can be very, very, very dangerous. And even that itself leads to perils because there are incredible dangers in rural areas as well. Of course, they've got to find petrol and they do stop to get some gas at a country petrol station and find some unusual things going on there. They also come into a town which everything seems to be normal in the town.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
I guess aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
It seems to be a little ordinary town in the middle of all of this chaos and the Civil War. And they're kind of baffled by, why is this town so normal? Why is this town so unaffected? And it's Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henson, who points out something very important during that group of scenes. Jesse and Lee build up a friendship and a mentorship during the trip as they head inevitably towards Washington, D.C., where the forces working against the authoritarian government are gathering for a final push to take over the White House and to basically kill the president. Here's what this movie is, and people have talked about it a lot. People have complained because there were 3 Instagram promotional images put up using AI to show what's happening around America during the Civil War. I think it's ill-considered for them to do that, but using AI images in movie production these days is a moral panic that's happening. It's inevitably going to happen. People are going to use AI images in future, only we're not going to be adept enough to see that they're AI images. So I'm going to ignore that, as I did with Late Night with the Devil, where there are like two-second images on the screen, which were generated partly through AI. I think that distracts from the quality of the movies and that moral panic is something which is going to fade before the end of the year. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the movie is about several things. It was directed, written by Alex Garland, who has produced and directed a whole bunch of good movies like Never Let Me Go. He did Dread. He also did Ex Machina. He did 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. He did Annihilation. So, this guy knows his genre work. And essentially, this is a dystopian future or alternate universe movie. But the movie for me is about two things. First off, it shows what war correspondents who aren't embedded in any military force, but who travel by themselves and travel through and try to find out the true story without the polish that it gets from embedded reporters. It's a love letter to them, and it shows the trauma and the toughness that these people have to get those images of war and bring them back to people as a cautionary tale. It serves that purpose in our societies. It also casts light on war crimes. There are a number of war crimes and a number of combat zones in the world at the moment which are being reported by people, some of whom lose their lives reporting them. At one level, the movie is about that. The second level, it's a critique of America. There's no allusions to Republicans or Democrats in this. There's no allusions to Trump or other people. It's not about that. What it's about is the dividedness of America.
What kind of American are you? You don't know?
And the way that people have been weaponized by very wealthy people to believe one thing or another. And what is going to be the hopefully not inevitable outcome of that. There are a whole bunch of different scenes where there's a fog of war about what these combat journalists see. There's a scene where there's a sniper battle between somebody in a house whom we never see and a couple of snipers who are pinned down at a trap that's been laid by the sniper in the house. Now, the journalists don't know which side the people are on, whether the snipers they're with and are pinned down with. They don't know whether they're in support of the president, played by Nick Offerman. And it doesn't matter. The person in the house is shooting at them, and so they need to get rid of them. And they don't always know which side they're on, or whether they are on sides, or whether they're just random nut jobs who've decided to see the Civil War as an opportunity to follow through on their extreme beliefs. And that's particularly salient to Jesse Plemons turning up as somebody who is armed and who asks questions of them as they're caught by him. The questions are very broad questions like, what kind of American are you? And where were you born? And there's a setting around that encounter with this character which is truly horrifying. The acting is uniformly good. Kirsten Dunst has never been better as Lee. She really gives us a complex character who is suffering from extreme post-traumatic stress disorder. This is her passion. This is her life. This is the thing she wants to do. Convey the horrors of war to people so that they continue them. Sending her photographs back to people who aren't part of the combat to show them how horrifying war is. Kaylee Spaney is very good as Jessie, the younger woman, who goes on an incredible character arc and an arc of self-knowledge and knowledge of the world. That's really good. Wagner Moura is good as Joel. Stephen McKinley Henson is fantastic playing Sammy. And Nick Offerman's president is truly chilling. This movie, for me, works. $50 million budget isn't a lot of money, and yet they convey an enormous, vast, world-changing war. And there are little bits of business, even just one burnt-out car on the side of a road, or 4 people walking along the road carrying all their possessions. It conveys the trauma of war zones and the trauma of a civil war. Because the movie has set it in America, it was intended, I suppose, to bring to American attention what's at risk by continuing the divisiveness and the popularist threat that exists in that country to this very moment. Great movie. Enjoyed it a lot. Saw it in the Davis Cinema, which is a beautiful cinema. It's about a 60-seater, which has really great red wallpaper, which is illuminated. Love the cinema. So I'm sitting one row from the back, and there are 2 old ladies sitting behind me and off to my right, and they're in the back row. Now, these 8 ladies are really old. They're like Nosferatu old. And they're talking all the way through the trailers. I wanted to see the trailers. I hadn't seen a couple of them. So they're talking loudly all the way through the trailers. So just before the movie starts, I turn around and go, shut up, to these 2 old ladies. And one of them says, what do you say? to the other one, and she goes, "He told you to shut up," and they kind of shut up almost. There were some scenes in the movie there's some very confrontational scenes in this film. And when those scenes come up, the old lady's behind me going, "Oh, I shouldn't see that. That shouldn't be shown." I got a little bit of that while I was watching the movie, but eventually I tuned them out and saw the movie. It's a tough little movie. I don't think it's perfect. There are bits where it went on slightly long in certain scenes. Your mileage may vary. You may see that as not the case. It's a good, solid little film. It's made its money back and more than, even though it isn't a picture and even though it doesn't have any superheroes in it. Civil War is one you should check out. It really does what it does well, and it does what it does honestly. A lot of people have gone, well, is this one supposed to be Republican or is that one? Is this a critique of Trump? No, it's a critique of popularism. It's a critique of countries that go to extremes in their belief systems and inevitably destroy themselves. That's what it's a critique of. At the same time that it is a love letter almost to combat journalists who go into danger to show us the unthinkable and the monstrous that goes on in our world. So I saw that one first. You know, I went out to the little boy's room. 10 minutes after that, the second movie I'm going to talk about was showing. So I went and got myself a ticket and I saw Abigail, which is a horror comedy sort of, and it's an interesting film from a promotional viewpoint because the trailer gives away one of the main secrets in the movie. A guy called Lambert, played by Giancarlo Esposito, gets together a crew to kidnap a very wealthy man's daughter, Abigail, played by Alicia Weir. She's into ballet, she's a ballerina. They kidnap her from the high-tech house she's living in with her father and take her to a house that Lambert has provided. An old Gothic house with lots of cellars and rats in the cellars. It's an old school Gothic house. And Lambert tells them, keep her here, keep her safe, keep her alive. It's going to take 24 hours. We're going to get an enormous payout from this kidnapping, and I'll come back and we'll sort it out, and everybody gets $7 million. And so the crew is put into this house to guard this little girl. Lambert gives them code names because nobody wants to give their real name, so that if somebody gets caught, they can't drop a dime on the rest of them. Lambert decides to give them Rat Pack names. So you've got Dean, who's a psychotic wheelman, Joey, played by Melissa Barrera, who's an ex-combat medic. Got Frank, played by Dan Stevens, who's an ex-cop. Rickles, they decided to call one of the characters Rickles because he talks back to Lambert, and he's played by Will Catlin. He's a combat sniper. There's a hacker called Sammy, played by Catherine Newton, who was in Lisa Frankenstein, and also she was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Really on a roll with genre films at the moment. And so this crew is in the house with Abigail. Joey is the person who looks after Abigail. She goes in and talks to her. She takes off the blindfold when requested and moves the handcuffs around to be in front of her rather than behind her, and talks to her for a little bit. And as the trailer tells us, these people are being set up because Abigail's a vampire, and Abigail is a very, very old vampire. And so as things turn, inevitably Abigail starts hunting down all of these really tough people. There's another character too, Peter, played by Kevin Durant, who's a Quebecois. He's the muscle for the crew. So all of them start getting stalked and hunted by Abigail. But there are more complexities, which the trailer doesn't give away. This one's got some great jump scares in it. I jumped, and I'll tell you why at the end of this video. And the twists and turns don't telegraph themselves. The one about Abigail being a vampire, of course, is in the trailer, and I'd seen the trailer. And Alicia Weir plays the character really well. For a kid, she does a great job of playing an old vampire. She also does the innocent kid thing quite well. She's got that potential to be an iconic horror character. There's a real grunt to this character, a ballerina child vampire who has a troubled relationship with her father. And we see the father at the end of the movie. I'm not going to do any more spoilers. This one works. The character actors are good. Dan Stevens playing Frank is dangerous for Cell. Melissa Barrera playing Joey gives a fairly complex character as well. Sammy is good. Catherine Newton's character, who's a rich girl hacker and then gets involved in this crew. Kevin Durant's very good playing the slightly stupid Peter, but he gets a little bit of... There's a lot of character development in this for this kind of movie, and it works really well. They get rid of the most annoying character first, which I really appreciate. I think that all movies should do that. When you've got the kind of thing where people are getting killed off, find whichever actor is playing the most annoying character and 86 them as soon as you can. Really appreciate that. Love when they do that. Happy that this movie did it. Now, this is a gory movie. It's one of those things where, like, when vampires get destroyed, there's about 50 gallons of blood and guts go in every direction. And I'm for that. I like that. And usually it lands on the actors. So everybody within range of any vampire getting destroyed, or anybody who gets turned into a vampire getting destroyed, gets covered in goo. Love that stuff in a movie. And the person who falls into the swimming pool full of rotting corpses, you can almost smell the smell. Again, I love that stuff. I saw this one in a smaller cinema called Roxy, which is the smallest cinema at the Sun in Yarraville. It's a 24-seat cinema, and I had it all to myself. I've got this grey Art Deco cinema all to myself, watching a creepy horror film full of jump scares, blood, guts, and all that kind of thing. And it only occurred to me in the last 10 minutes of watching the movie how creepy the environment in which I was watching the movie was. And then I loved it even more. I love the Roxy. Roxy may be my favourite so far out of the different boutique cinemas inside the Sun that I've seen. It's got couches as the seats, and I'm always a favourite of that, so I've got like a double couch to myself. Nobody else in the cinema. Always love it when that happens. It's a joy to watch a movie in a cinema by yourself. It's not too great for the economics of the people who own the cinemas. It's not too great for the economics of the people who own the cinemas that I got a ticket for nothing because I'm reviewing it as a part of the Australian Film Critics Association. But I enjoyed the movie a lot. Loved where I was watching it. See horror movies in a small cinema by yourself. It will never not be good. And it was just such a lot of fun to just go and see a couple of interesting smaller films in small boutique cinemas in a lovely place where the really nice people who run the place. It's in a really nice area with lots of cafes around and things like that. Just a great day today. And I enjoyed both of these movies, each in a very different way. Civil War in a much more kind of intellectual and grounded way, and Abigail in a much more fantastic way, in the sense of being a piece of fantastic fiction. Check them out. They may be on streaming already. If they're not on streaming, they soon will be. But I'm kind of inclined to try to get at least Civil War and probably Abigail as a physical copy when they become available, because I like both of them enough to do that. I think that may be the gauge I use in future when I'm reviewing. Is it good enough to get a physical copy of? I don't like doing 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 stars. That kind of thing is not really my bag. But I think I will do good enough for physical media, not good enough for physical media. So, like I said, great day for me today. Enjoyed the hell out of myself. Enjoyed the two movies. Didn't like the old ladies behind me in the first one. And I think that they really need to think about their life choices. But apart from that, a great day. Good couple of movies. Not big blockbuster films, but good, honest films that provide entertainment, and neither of them in any way insulted my intelligence. So that's it for this time around. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all of the jazz you know you've got to do. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member or by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Science Fiction Saturday again. I'm doing 3 kaiju movies that I've never seen before and I love the hell out of. So until then, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Try to get into a cinema by yourself and just enjoy the hell out of the experience. And I'll catch you next time.